J.J. McCarthy is out. We've got a patchwork offensive line. Aaron Jones is out. Key members of our defensive front are injured. Tons and tons and tons and tons of injuries. But I'm here to tell you why we can be the most dangerous team after the bye. We'll discuss on the UP.
I don't know who I am. Can I say?
Powered by Riverside FM.
Man, it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole in terms of the sky is falling, the Minnesota Vikings quarterbacks are out, the offensive line, patchwork offensive line. We've got so many injuries. And I know Minnesota Vikings fans, it has been really, really frustrating. It's been frustrating for me to watch a season that had so much promise kind of get off to an iffy start. But I'm here to tell you that there is a possibility that the 3-2 record and the start that the Minnesota Vikings had in terms of all of the injuries, there may be a silver lining in it. There may be a silver lining in this that nobody is really talking about. Okay, first of all, you got the bye week coming up, and then you have the health and rest advantage. Like, we got J.J. McCarthy expected to return. I know that there's a lot of speculation out there of whether or not he's going to return Philadelphia Eagles game, whether it's going to be the Chargers game, what have you. We don't know that yet. But we're going to be getting our QB1 back at some point. The offensive line is going to get healthier after the bye. We're not exactly sure when Ryan Kelly is going to be able to come back. He's obviously on IR, but the majority of our offensive line should be in place after the bye. That's good news. Aaron Jones is coming back to be a tandem with Jordan Mason at some point. I think it's kind of intriguing that we haven't really heard major updates about Aaron Jones. If you guys have heard some updates about Aaron Jones that I'm missing and when he's coming back in terms of his timeline, put it in the comments. I really haven't heard anything. This bye week is crucial for health. Coaching adjustments. Kevin O'Connell has always said that the bye week is used to self-scout. So there's going to be a lot of self-scouting going on, I'm assuming, to make this team better. I think Kevin O'Connell is going to be looking for an identity for this team. Are they going to be a run-first team, which I think J.J. McCarthy would kind of flourish in when he comes back, or are they going to continue to be this vertical down-the-field type passing team instead of a handoff, quick passing game, West Coast offense type team? I think that's going to be interesting to watch. The schedule is daunting, so I'm not here to blow smoke at you in terms of the schedule, man. The schedule is absolutely daunting for the Minnesota Vikings. But here's where I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings may be dangerous and why there is a silver lining in all these injuries and us not having all of our pieces going into what I call the gauntlet of our schedule. And we got some teams coming up. The Ravens. I know the Ravens aren't looking good, man, but I'm thinking the Ravens are going to figure that thing out with Lamar Jackson, the Philadelphia Eagles. We got the Green Bay Packers twice on the back end of our schedule. Got the Detroit Lions. So this is going to be a hard gauntlet of a schedule. But here's why the Minnesota Vikings may be dangerous, UP Nation, Skol Nation, and Purple Gang. Think about this. The NFL is predicated on, especially when you get to high levels, it's not just the NFL, it's any professional team that is of high level. Everything is about film. And it's not necessarily about the X's and O's all the time. That's a piece of it. But the majority of film is to find tendencies, man. If you can find tendencies on players, how they line up, what their physical habits are, you've won 50% of the battle in any sport that you coach. It's one of the things that when I sit down with my teams and we go through film, we're looking for tendencies that will show us the cards of the other team. And that's where a lot of scouting is built from. When you look at the Minnesota Vikings, like what are you scouting right now? What are the tendencies? Think about this, UP Nation, Minnesota Viking fans, Purple Gang, think about this. Think about the first 5 games of this season. What a mosh pit of inconsistency the Minnesota Vikings are. I mean, they're not consistent. The only consistency that the Minnesota Vikings have right now, they are consistent with being inconsistent. And I'm talking about the play calling, I'm talking about the effectiveness of the running game, I'm talking about the effectiveness of the passing game, I'm talking about personnel, who plays, who doesn't play, who's QB1, who's QB2, who's going to get run at running back, who is our wide receiver 3 is going to be, who's going to play on the defensive line, who's playing well LDR, is it Allen or Hargrave? There are so many inconsistencies with this football team right now, and it's all not the Minnesota Vikings' fault. Like, you can throw the injuries in there, but my point is, what are people getting on film? What are people scouting? What are the tendencies for the Minnesota Vikings? I'll give you a perfect example. When J.J. McCarthy comes back, if you are preparing to play against J.J. McCarthy, what are you preparing for? There's not a book on him yet. Now, if I'm a defensive coordinator, the only thing I got is right now he doesn't look very good under pressure. But is that because the offensive line was makeshift, or is that because that's J.J. McCarthy? You can also throw Jordan Addison, was it in there? So was the ineffectiveness of J.J. McCarthy because left tackle was out, Jordan Addison wasn't there? Opponents don't know. Was the effective pressure on J.J. McCarthy because of the patchwork offensive line? Opponents just don't know. Opponents really haven't gotten an opportunity to see what the tandem running game of an Aaron Jones, what a Jordan Mason is going to look like. There's no book on that. UP Nation Purple Gang. See, it's all about being able to build a book and try to find tendencies of the other team. And right now, other teams don't have that luxury. How are you going to attack the offensive line where the offensive line that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to see after the bye is going to be, I think, a much healthier offensive line? We probably won't have all 5 starters in there, obviously, with Ryan Kelly being out. But you're going to have probably the healthiest offensive line that we've had all year with Christian Darrisaw in there. So how are you really preparing to attack an offensive line that you haven't seen? UP Nation. Jordan Addison, if he can stay out of trouble, now the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be getting, and a lot of the teams after the bye, a full complement of offensive tools with Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and a tandem running game. Something that the NFL teams after the bye have not had an opportunity to see or build a file on. When you look at the talent, you look at the coaching acumen of KLC. I know KLC gets dogged a lot for his play calling, but KLC is a good coach. He's smart. He understands offense, probably not the best play caller, but in terms of implementing and preparing his teams, I think he gets high grades there. That's just my opinion. So you add a KOC, you add a J.J. McCarthy in the fold, you add a tandem running game, a healthier offensive line. It looks like we may be getting Cashman back. We don't know about Gink yet, but hopefully we'll be getting Gink back. We're going to have Harrison Smith get more of an uptick in terms of his playing time. My question becomes, and my point in making this video is, what book do teams have on the Minnesota Vikings right now? Everything that they have been seeing, for all intents and purposes, is an illusion to what the team is really going to look like if we can stay healthy going down the stretch. This is why I think the Minnesota Vikings may be one of the most dangerous teams down the stretch. I think early on, things change in the season, man. I think early on, I'm guilty of this. When we were looking at the schedule after the bye, we were like, oh my God, the gauntlet of teams that we have to play. But it's turning out that the Philadelphia Eagles have some issues. It's turning out that the Baltimore Ravens have some issues. The Chargers are just coming off loss. And Green Bay, after getting Micah Parsons, hasn't been what people thought that they were going to be. So now you got this new, it's like you're going to be getting a new injection of energy for the Minnesota Vikings. Getting healthier. What we thought our team would be will be starting to form. And the key thing about it, because I know how much the NFL relies on scouting, tendencies, analytics. My question is, what do the other teams really have on the Minnesota Vikings right now? I'm talking about just in terms of a scouting report. I'm talking about just in terms of a book, a file on the Minnesota Vikings. Like, you're coming in to the unknown. I believe the reason why Dylan Gabriel looked okay against the Minnesota Vikings really didn't have a book on Dylan Gabriel. They threw a lot of stuff against the wall. They tried to figure out what would stick. They tried to overwhelm the kid, but the kid is really mature. He was a little bit more efficient against the Minnesota Vikings than we expected him to be. And with rookie quarterbacks or backup quarterbacks, like, that's the X factor. You just don't know how they're going to respond to certain situations. And I think Dylan Gabriel responded pretty admirably against the Minnesota Vikings in B-Flow. And I think they probably would have been more effective against the Joe Flacco because they have a book on Joe Flacco and not Dylan Gabriel. So the same thing applies to the Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy. It's like when the Philadelphia Eagles, Chargers, and all of these teams start to line up against the Minnesota Vikings after the bye, how are they really preparing? What are they really preparing for? What tendencies are they looking at to help them in their scouting report? What sort of information can they give these players? And this stuff is really important. If you could see the prep work that goes on behind the scenes of these NFL teams, they want to know what the starting quarterback eats for breakfast. Everything is detailed down to the very minute tendency of each player. And so when you have a mosh pit of putting personnel here, patchwork there, going with this guy here, going with this guy there, digging into your depth, playing people that you probably won't play if you're fully healthy down the stretch. My question is, what are other teams really watching from the Minnesota Vikings? This, my friends, makes the Minnesota Vikings, with their talent, one of the most dangerous teams, I feel, if they do this right. If they do this right, they could be one of the most dangerous teams going down the stretch of this season. But they got to get good quarterback play. The play calling has to be on point. All of these things merge together for success. But don't sleep on the 3-2 start. This thing could turn around and we could take off because there's just not a lot of film. There's just not a lot of info right now where we could steal a couple of games until the film really starts to come out. When people can create a file on the Minnesota Vikings, we could steal 2 or 3 games in this gauntlet. And if we do that, I think that sends us to the playoffs. Minnesota Vikings can be dangerous, man. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, UP Nation, Unconventional Playbook's going to get you to think. We will see you when we see you. The Minnesota Vikings, don't sleep on them. Could be one of the most dangerous teams coming out of the bye. Skol!